At one point, the Crash Test Dummies were unsure that their debut LP, The Ghosts That Haunt Me, would ever go anywhere. It was only the promise of an extended tour that made them give up their day jobs as a co-check person and a bartender to accept the rock and roll lifestyle. Of course, selling nearly 500,000 records over the next 2 years probably made them reconsider ever mixing another Mai Tai or hanging up another smelly furry coat. The Dummies were formed in Winnipeg in 1987 when Brad Roberts, Ellen Reed, and Dan Roberts used to jam with local musicians at the Blue Note Cafe. A demo followed, they got some grant money together, and soon they signed to BMG Records. But their big break came in 1991 with the unlikely hit, the Superman song. It got loads of airplay, mostly because of listener requests. And that's the one that catapulted them to great success. The band is working right now on their second LP, and they're in our spotlight right after this.
I do tend to downplay the whole role of inspiration, partly because I tend to be a rather constipated writer and I'm rarely inspired. And partly because I get kind of tired of the flakiness of the way that comes off sounding, especially with, writers who are like, walking down the street with, their pad of paper tucked away in their jeans so that when, the revelation hits them, they can scribble it down before they forget. It's like, oh, good grief, That's kind of annoying.
Oh, you can sweet up toast and tea. I gaze across the table, she stares right back at me. And when I'm getting low on jam, I give her the last scoop, but that's just the way I am. And I drive her to work each day, even though it's early and work is far away. And I don't even say a thing when she plays the radio so loud you cannot think, 'cause I know it's true, I know it's true, that I was made for her, she made too, and I'm confident that she'll think so too. She'll be coming back, coming back, coming back, and coming back, come back soon.
There certainly is a role that inspiration does play, and it's just that usually you have to sit around and be very craftspersonally for several days before something, presents itself. And whenever we get interviewed, the Celtic influence is always mentioned, and it's something that we like to, it is only an influence in that, like, we're not a very traditional act, and, we've got full bass and drums, and there's a hint, with the accordion and the penny whistle and so forth, and the fact that we do listen to Irish traditional music, it filters its way in there, but, we're just as comfortable on, a stage at, say, the Folk Festival where we played last year as we are in a bar, and it's because we've got the bass and drums and everything, and you can get away with doing that. If we were doing something much more traditional, anything more hardline Celtic, like there's some really very traditional Celtic groups out there, then we could never get away with playing places like the Diamond or Albert Hall like this week.
Just one of those things that get better right through the door, come and you stay letter. Crying makes you feel better. Say it all out and feel stay letter. Crying makes you feel better. Say it all out and feel stay letter.
When we first started playing at this place called the Blue Note, we could basically do anything we wanted because it wasn't a club where you got hired out to play for a week and so forth. It was an open stage. And so we took that opportunity to just play whatever we felt like, and that was, the whole idea was to be eclectic and basically free to do what we want. And we covered some old Irish traditional tunes and some country tunes, and by the time, 2 years later we started writing our own stuff, then it was sort of imprinted in the kind of thing that we were doing, so it just kind of crept in that way. But it's not got much to do with our ancestry.
I sat down at a truck stop, I was thinking about my past. I've been long, figured that bell, and I'm afraid it's gonna last, gonna last. Gonna last, gonna last, gonna last. I've been long, figure that bell, and I'm afraid it's gonna last.
People hear the name Crash Test Dummies and they think, wow, it's going to be a thrash band. But then when people see the band, they say, well, it doesn't suit your band much, but don't change it because it's a good name, and everybody keeps telling us that, so we've kind of gone with it. Who knows what to do when you've gone this far with a name that you're not sure about?
Well, I get to glow on jam. I give her the last spoonful, it's just the way I am. And I ride to work each day, even though it's early and work is far away. No, I don't even say a thing when she plays the radio so loud again. I think 'cause I know it's true. I know it's true. I was made for her and she me too. And I'm confident that she'll think so too. She'll be coming back, coming back, coming back, coming back, coming back soon.
Well, you know, I've come to accept my voice. Geez, it sounds like we're on the couch again here. But I did think that it would be a handicap, to be quite honest, before we began. I thought, you know, gee, I'm a bass baritone, and I'm trying to get away with singing melody. You know, how far can I stretch this? But it's just something that I can't get around. You know, it's my voice. In the end, it proved to be an advantage rather than a handicap because, you know, people continually remarked that my voice was something that, you know, stuck out of the general, oh, gee, I won't.
Oh,
what adjectives can I think of?
Ahead.
But, you know, it's something that I've kind of had to work with. I had a really good vocal teacher who taught me a great deal. And
about how to actually sing.
Yeah. And how to make the upper end of my range work better for me and how not to hurt my voice. And
what do you do when it gets in trouble when you have to gig?
I drink single malt scotch and try not to talk a lot.
I think it's partly on account of the songs being sort of slow and moody and have this brooding quality to it, which sort of naturally lends itself to cinematic stuff. Itself came from Ellen, the keyboard player in the band. We took that idea and made it into what it is, but tried to maintain a bit of the fun of the band in that, I mean, anybody with a name like the Crash Test Dummies has to have a bit of a sense of humor.
Somewhere in the Midwest in America who sent me a fan letter saying, I've never sent anybody a fan letter. That's how they usually start, by the way. I don't usually send fan letters. He had interpreted the chorus, the all-pervasive Solomon Grundy question. But what I didn't know at the time was that there is, in fact, a children's rhyme that invokes the character of Solomon Grundy. And the children's rhyme goes something like, Solomon Grundy was born on a Monday, did his laundry on Tuesday, did a something on Wednesday, blah, blah, blah. Then when we get to Sunday, and that was the end of Solomon Grundy. And this doctor said that, you know, in his reading that this clearly meant that Superman was, in fact, here to save us from that kind of meaningless existential existence that... Existential existence. Is that redundant?
No, it isn't.
Okay. Yeah, no, I guess it isn't, because not all existences are existential, unless you're an existentialist. But at any rate, he figured that the short, meaningless life of Solomon Grundy was a kind of existential vision, and that for Superman to save us from this was to cast Superman as, in fact, a Christ figure who would, of course, permeate our lives with meaning and a teleological thrust, and that wasn't I brilliant to have come up with that? I was so pleased. I was so pleased. I got more mileage out of that in interviews for the longest time.
This award is for the most popular video of the year.
If I could thank Mr. Brad Roberts for writing this song, it's the most important thing about doing a music video.